Hi, hello, welcome everyone. We
Hey,
are doing another live stream. Welcome, Erazem.
hey.
Okay. So guys, I do apologize today that in this live stream. We are finding me in a car. I'm headed on the road today, but we didn't want to miss this one because a lot of our viewers and a lot of our customers and prospects have been interested in understanding more about AirSync. AirSync is a pretty powerful technology that we've talked a lot about. If you talk about DevRev's knowledge graph, the durable knowledge graph that really powers so much of what we do in terms of getting you fast, personalized, accurate responses and that you can act on. A lot of that information, because we coexist with the rest of your infrastructure, it's coming with connectors. These connectors are AirSync connectors. They're near real time. They're bidirectionally syncing information from a lot of different systems. For example, Salesforce and Jira and Zendesk and Linear and so on. And so there's a lot of foundational technologies behind this. And one of our fine engineers that works on it is Erazem. So Erazem, where do we find you today?
Yeah, I mean, so you found me in the middle of work on AirSync. It's I think it's a good opportunity to present finally what AirSync is, like how it works, what its capabilities are, and then even show off some cool features that we have in AirSync.
Outstanding. And so I think what we want to do here is maybe similar to some of these other core technologies where we do a 3-parter or maybe a 4-parter even, where we sort of start talking about some of the clever details of AirSync in terms of how it's able to bring information in without taking too strong an opinion in terms of the objects, the record types, the fields, the attributes that need to be brought in. Because when you're bringing information from so many different systems, you can't necessarily come in with a very strong opinion on what the object model needs to look like. Now, we do have an opinion so that we can actually enrich the knowledge graph properly. But beyond that, we allow for tremendous customizability. So we're going to look at that. And then, of course, we want to talk a little bit about the how behind AirSync, and finally talk a little bit about what opportunities we have when you're syncing information to create computer's memory. What opportunities you have to leave back the information that's not going to help you, so you don't have to bring everything into the memory. Number 2 is being able to enrich information within computer's memory that doesn't necessarily have to go back out because it's not germane to the primary systems that you're connecting with. And of course, many other capabilities that we have by virtue of actually creating this computer memory thanks to AirSync. So I think we'll cover all of those things. Am I missing anything, Erazem?
No, I think you covered pretty much everything. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll talk about this today. And then I think there's some key topics, for example, permission syncing, how we actually respect and recognize your identity and access provisions from your source connectors as part of AirSync. I think that probably deserves its own topic. So we can look forward to that in maybe in a few weeks and most likely have a 3rd and a 4th part to it as well. But for today, maybe we can get something going on the screen and start the discussion. So Erazem, what are we looking at to begin with?
Yeah, so what you're looking at here is a fresh AirSync screen. So let me actually show you how you get to the screen from your organization, right? So if you go here into settings and then scroll down, you'll find AirSyncs here, right?
Okay.
So this is your main screen where you do all your work, right? So as you said already, right, AirSync allows you to import data from external systems, right, into DevRev's knowledge graph, into DevRev's memory.
So let me just understand where we are right now. So you went into DevRev's web app, for example, and you went into settings, and inside settings, you went to the navigation panel, scroll down into the section called integrations. And so within the integration space, there is a dedicated spot for AirSync. And so you clicked on that, and here you can see, and of course, this is sort of a fictitious org that you set up. And for this organization, you have a Jira connector set up. So tell me more.
Yeah. So in AirDrop, in AirSync, you can import from as many different systems as you want. We actually have a few like initial integrations to offer to you, but you can also ask your customer success people to make a connector for you. So an example that I showed here is Jira. So this is a connection that I have. In AirSync, a connection just means like an OAuth connection, right?
Yeah, and why don't we do this? Why don't we click on that plus connector? So if you click back on there, and you can see the full swing. Actually, not there. If you actually go back, there you are. So if you actually click on plus connection, you can see, I mean, a small smattering of some of the different types of connections that you can set up. Obviously, there's more connectors being set up all the time. So in this particular example, you're just going to show us, I guess, Jira and HubSpot, two popular ones, but there's many more.
Yeah, there's many more, and this list is not even like complete. So if you install snap-ins as in your organization, right, this list is going to get longer. So yeah, this is just
Absolutely.
a small selection.
And of course, you could go to Explore, or you could go to DevRev AI/Marketplace and see a fuller list.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Go on.
So,
sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So, okay, so let's maybe start with like what AirSync is, right, in a bit more detail. So as we already discussed, like it allows you to import the data into DevRev, right? But why is like, so we spent many years perfecting AirSync, right? And why does it take many years to do something that sounds so simple, like just taking data from one system to another, right? Well, it's not actually as simple as it sounds, right? So if you've used different systems before, right? So Zendesk, HubSpot, Salesforce, right? Everybody has their own like data schema, data model, right? And DevRev has one as well, of course. But then it turns out that these data models can be quite different from each other, right? There's a lot of things that can like differ between the systems. For example, you can have an optional field in HubSpot, but this is a required field in DevRev, right? So then how do you handle the case where this field is not really present in the data that comes into DevRev, right? So there's cases like this. And so what AirSync does is it uses something that we've developed called Recipe Manager. It's a like intricate component that actually handles like the mapping between the data model in the external system and the mapping in DevRev, right? So if you want, I think like I can explain more about it. I think it's a very interesting topic. So some more technical people might be very interested in how this works.
Why don't we click on it? If there's a visual, you can show me of a sample recipe, maybe for Jira, for example.
For sure. So this is what I did here is I'm going to show you later how I came to this point. But for now, let's just show how all of this works, right? So I just clicked here on the map fields. And here I can see the list of all the object types that we can import through this connector. And so this list differs between different connectors, right? Because some systems may not have like accounts. Like Jira doesn't really have a concept of accounts, right? So that there's no sense in showing that. But it has a lot of other object types that it can import. And so here we come actually to the first part where AirSync shines, right? So you don't actually have to import all of this, right? You can maybe you maybe can decide like I don't really care about the comments. I just want the issues, right? Then I can just deselect comments here, and they won't be imported into DevRev.
I got it. Okay, so you can start to select and deselect information. And what's really interesting about this from my vantage point is the fact that if you're actually bringing this information in and perhaps even bidirectionally syncing this information so you can take action on it from DevRev or from Computer, the reality is you may not want all this information in Computer's long-term memory. There's a possibility that some of these fields actually have no bearing on the types of behaviors that you want to use Computer for. And it's true. I mean, there's probably a lot of data that there's no business of it being synced back and forth for no reason. You're probably not going to take action on it, and it's probably not germane to some of the questions that you want answered. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And if you've seen customers have this exact case, right? They don't really want all their data. They just want a subset of their data in DevRev.
Got it. So now, if you actually go ahead with this, what happens?
Yeah. So for now, let's say we want to import everything, right? Then I can just go to next screen, and this is another like case of where you can drill down even further, right? So maybe let's say we don't want context, okay, but we want issues, right? But we don't actually want all the issues, right? So here I can set up even more advanced filters that allow me to say, for example, I just want the issues from the last 30 days to be imported. Yeah, and this is how like you can select the specific object that you want. For example, in our case, this could be issues, and then you can select a subtype of issues. So a subtype is basically like the kind of issue it is in the external system, right? So Jira has a concept of bugs, tasks, stuff like that, and we can just say, okay, so for every issue that is a bug, for every bug in Jira, right? We just want to import those that were modified in the past, I don't know, like 2 weeks, right?
Got it.
Yeah. So that really allows you to do like small scale stuff that like drill down to every detail that you want. You can also like expand this to.
There's a lot of people that talk to me about sort of do I have to bring everything? And that's somewhat of a loaded question, but what we want to do is make sure that you're bringing in the information that you need in computer's long-term memory to actually answer. So I like the fact that it's not just about what attributes you're bringing in, but it's also about what subtypes or maybe what projects or what stories, what epics, and so on and so forth. So it's actually fairly remarkable that we sort of deeply understand the schema from the source system, and we're giving you a lot of optionality here.
Yeah, and what's even better about this, like when you were talking about the schema, right? We actually we can't know the schema upfront, right? We can't just give you this data. What we do is we get this data dynamically, right? And what this offers you is that you can choose at runtime exactly which data you want. Like we don't need to set everything up beforehand. You can just tell us while you're doing the import. And actually, you were saying about the different subtypes, right? So yeah, this is actually a valid case. Like maybe you don't want to import some sort of HR project, right? Because maybe HR has sensitive info, right? In that case, you can just filter everything out that you want.
I like it. Okay, so let's keep going with this recipe and see where we land.
Okay, so the next step is like, what do you want the items, the object types in the external system to map to in DevRev? So in most cases, the only sensible mapping is just one mapping, right? So you want comments in Jira to become comments in DevRev, right? But in some cases, you maybe want something else. For example, in Jira, you have the concept of epics, right? So maybe in DevRev, you want to have to map each epic into an enhancement or into an issue or into an incident, right? So AirSync also offers you this. And this is a very powerful capability, right? Because a lot of different organizations have different preferences on what they want to import that data as. And they have different workflows, and this is what allows them to do this.
Yeah, and really, you can create whatever custom record types you want to create, subtypes, or absolutely brand new custom objects, and then start to have these recipes map some of these records to this new object type that you've created. So there's a tremendous amount of customizability here.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
So let's fast forward through this and see what the final recipe looks like.
Yeah, so let's maybe just go through the next field. So some of this will also be covered in future sessions, right? But maybe it's interesting just to note here that we also offer the granularity of deciding on individual fields, right? So AirSync, as you see here, like all the values were mapped, which means AirSync apply sensible defaults, right? So if you don't want to do this, you're not forced to do it, right? We do this automatically. But if you're one of the power users, right, you can say for each kind of field, what exactly it should map to. And this is something that a lot of our power user companies do. They just want to have everything mapped specifically as they want it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're somebody who is perfectly fine with the defaults, it's pretty easy. You can just keep clicking next.
Exactly. And we're working on even a better UI that's even more simple than this. So I think in the near future, for non-power users, this will be even better.
Awesome, a teaser. I like it. Let's keep going.
Sure. And then, so we were discussing before also data cleanliness, right? So one thing that you can also do is just say, I don't want to import this field. I don't care about this field. I just want, I don't know, the standard fields, or I want these specific fields, right? You can decide all of this here. This is like the last barrier that you have. And then that's it. Then we are actually done with the mapping screen, and we will continue with the import.
Okay. And so now we are actually starting the import. It's actually doing it right now.
It's actually doing it right now. Yeah.
Oh, wow. How long is this thing going to take?
So it depends on the number of items you have in your source system, right? But in this case, this is my test project, so this shouldn't take very long. But anyhow, we can come back to this when it's finished.
Okay. So there are people who ask me, if I have a system where I'm tracking my projects, my stories, my epics, as you would in a Jira or something, they want to know how long does it take to actually bring the data over, to integrate this sync. And really what you're saying is from start to finish, this is minutes, at least for this scenario. And of course, if you have 20 years of data, it may take time, but it's not going to take you weeks or anything like that.
Yeah, and even for millions and millions of records, right? We have smart ways of shortening the time it takes to import, right? We can, for example, one thing that we've done pretty recently is we can say let's maybe just import the last 30 days of records, right? And then you can start using DevRev immediately, and then we'll just backfill all the other data, right? So you can use DevRev immediately.
Am I right? Did it just complete in a minute?
Yeah, it just completed. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any proof that it completed?
Yeah, we can see here that it completed. So this is a test project. So you can see here there's an error log and stuff like that. But because this is a test project, this is what I set up. So we don't have to worry about any of these. But yeah, you can see here exactly how many records were created, how many policies were created. So this is the permissions that we were talking about. We're going to cover this in a future session.
Very nice.
We can also see that we imported a lot of tags, comments, issues, stuff like that. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, nice. What else did you want to show me? This was great. Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, maybe then let's actually get to like we can go more into detail about AirSync, or we can like go into the cool feature that I wanted to show you today, which is how we can clean your data by deduplicating identities.
Yeah, let's go into that.
Contexts in accounts. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, let's see it. Let's have a look.
I've prepared like another test org. This is HubSpot. We're looking at HubSpot here.
Yep.
So what I have here is a setup that we might see. So this is like this is a small setup, right? But it's supposed to show it shows you how we would act in certain scenarios, right? Because we don't really want to wait for like I don't know 5 minutes to get the import, right? We want to do it immediately, and then just like you can see how this will scale to bigger systems, right? But basically, what the scenario here shows.
Just remind me, what am I looking at right now? Am I in HubSpot right now? This is like a fake HubSpot.
No, so this is not even fake HubSpot. This is a real HubSpot instance that I have set up here.
Okay. Okay, so this is really HubSpot. You're actually showing me a setup in HubSpot right now.
I'm showing you a setup in HubSpot with real data, and this is the data that will show being imported a bit later. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Let's go for it. I mean, this is a real live explanation of how this is going to work. Fantastic.
Exactly.
So you're actually using HubSpot, and you've actually set all this information up, and you're going to show me how these contacts and all this information can be brought in.
Yeah. So these are, you can see here, there's 3 contacts here, right? They're from different companies. Here, the idea is that like you have 3 different companies, 3 different domains. So the reason why I wanted to show HubSpot here is because like, so we say that like we want to give you as much flexibility as possible, right? But DevRev is also somewhat opinionated, and this is a good thing in my opinion, right? But HubSpot is very, very lax about everything, which also means that it's much easier to have bad data in HubSpot, right? So the idea here is let's use HubSpot because it has the least restrictions, and because there's the most potential for having like kind of, let's say, garbage data. Not really garbage data, but I think you get what I mean. So yeah, here we have 3 companies, 2 with the same name, all with different domains. So let's start the import here. So before I had this already set up, right? Now let's do it from scratch, right? So that you can see how we would normally do an import. So I'll just go here under AirSync. I'll select HubSpot here. I've already set up a connection. I can even show you how to set up a new one, but in this case, let's go with this duplicate identities connection, which is the org we were just seeing.
Yeah.
Here you see it immediately found the org. I can just select this org. I want to import this. So here you can also select which part in DevRev you want to connect everything you import to. But for now, let's just say default product. That's fine. And let's start the import.
And the reason you call the duplicate contacts as a name, that's not a name that people would typically give their HubSpot space, but I guess you called it that because what you wanted to demonstrate was it was a source of information that was going to have duplicate contacts.
Yeah, I mean, this is so technically I could name it anything. Normally this would be my company name, right? But in this case, since we want to showcase how we can deduplicate data, right? This is the name I chose. But in general, this will match your company name. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're going to set up the sync now.
Yeah. So we already did the first part. So we came to the mapping screen, right? So we can follow a similar procedure then to Jira. But here we see I only have like the 3 contacts and 3 companies set up. So then we can skip that. We also want to import everything in this case. Here you can see that companies will map to DevRev accounts and contacts will map to DevRev users, which is contacts. So you know before when I showed you had like a lot of fields here, right? So Jira is one of those systems that has a lot of custom fields. HubSpot doesn't really have that many custom fields, so it's expected here that we're not really forced to map anything. But we can still select which fields that we want to skip if we want to skip any. But in our case, we don't really worry about skipping them. So yeah. So now we're gonna continue with the loading, and as you'll see, like this is going pretty fast. Just in a few seconds, I think that was like 3 seconds, we're finished.
Yeah.
So now let's switch to the the main screen. So here, if I refresh my screen, you can see that we imported 3 accounts, right? So these are the same accounts that we had here. And then now you can immediately notice the first difference, right? So in HubSpot, there's no restrictions on like the company names being duplicates. And if you think about this, right, if you only see the name Google and you have 2 Googles, you have no idea which one is which, right? In DevRev, we made a choice to not allow this. And we said, let's have unique names, right? So here you can see that when we were importing the second Google, we modified the name so that it's unique now. Okay. Now, if we go to contacts, we can also see that these contacts now belong to the organizations in HubSpot, which means that we automatically, like, we kept the same relationships between data in the external system in DevRev as well, right? So now let's go into the actual fun part, right? Which is, what if we have another organization? So this is my other organization in HubSpot. Again, I'm using HubSpot just because it's allows for the most messy data. But here you can see that we have some duplicates, and then we also have a new person, which is Emily in this case, I think. Yes. So now let's continue with the import of this second HubSpot, if that's okay with you.
Yep.
So if we go here, select the duplicate identities too. Again, select default product. That's fine. We know what we want to do. We don't have to worry about any specifics. And again, in a few seconds, we'll get to the mapping part. I'll just map the fields. Here we again see now we have four objects which we found in the external system. We can skip the filters. We can skip the mapping objects. Just like we said, if we're not power users, we can just continue. Here again, me as not a power user here, I would just say, okay, let's import everything. Cool, and in a few seconds, we'll have loaded everything. Now, if we go again into accounts, if we refresh this, we'll see that there were now 3 accounts again. But here, one thing you see is that now we have 2 HubSpot imports, and we have actually merged the accounts together. So even though we imported data from 2 systems, right? So here we can see that we imported, even in the second system, we again imported a lot of companies. We see that 3 contacts and 4 companies were merged, right? So that means even though I have 7 companies altogether, in DevRev, I just have 3, which is exactly what you would expect as a customer. Like if you have duplicate data, why would you want to have that in your system, right?
And is there anybody that actually doesn't love this feature? I mean, this seems like exactly what you would want.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so far we've only heard from customers who are saying like, we love this. We want to have more of this, and we're trying to make it even better for them in the near future. So yeah, so far nobody's saying no, don't clean up my data, right? Make it worse.
So I mean, when you talk about making it better, like define what does better mean here?
Yeah, I mean, so better in this case means that you have combine the data from different systems, right? So if I have the same account in 2 systems, I want that account to be one account in DevRev, right? And I want to have, like, if you have separate issues in both systems, right? I want all the issues to be on the same account. And here you can see like the way we smartly decide whether we want to merge, whether we don't want to merge. So for example, if there's if you have, let's go for context, actually, maybe that'd be a good case. So here you can see, for example, that Emily and David, they're from different Microsoft companies in HubSpot, but here they're both associated with the same Microsoft, right? So that means that we had separate, different data in different systems, but in DevRev, they actually were assigned to the same company because that's the same company in both systems, right?
Got it. Very nice.
And also, so for example,
go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say this, so in the external system, right? You saw that in HubSpot, here you saw that there's a Google and there's another Google, but they have different domains, right? So one thing that you can see here in DevRev is that because those have different domains, right? They're not the same company. So that means that AirSync should not merge those, right? So here you can see that Jane remains with the non-Google one, and then remains with the Google one. So that's also exactly what you would want.
When you say the non-Google one, what you mean to say is the Google that had the other domain.
Yeah, the Google, the company named Google, which had another domain. Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, I get it. That's that's pretty good. I mean, look, it's very practical. It might seem obvious, but the reality is probably people are living for years with this sort of duplicate data, and maybe nobody cares until the day you want to bring it in and make it accessible for AI, for search and answers and automations, and a lot of the analytics that we want to provide conversationally. And suddenly, it's super important to make sure that you don't actually do this redundant checking, right? So, I'm glad we're doing this. I mean, just to recap where we are right now, what we basically did was we talked a little bit about AirSync and how it works. Then we really started to get into showing how the mappings happen, because what we want to show is that there's a tremendous amount of flexibility, but also the defaults are very strong. So if you are not a power user, you can set it up pretty quickly. If you are a power user, you can sit down and actually say, you know what, I want to create custom record types. I want to create custom subtypes, maybe custom objects with custom attributes to actually bring my information in. Or you want to bring it in and map it in a very specific way, which is non-traditional, which is totally fine. You may also elect to not bring in specific types of information because it's not germane to the type of knowledge graph that we're building. And of course,
Exactly.
because it's bidirectional, you can also elect to not have specific information go back into the source, which is really fascinating. So you have a lot of optionality in either direction. And on top of that, on the way in, because we want to make sure that not only do we have a data synchronization story, we also want to make sure we have a data cleansing story and a data sanitization story. What you're showing us is that you are, as an example, also doing a lot of deduplication on very critical content, for example, identities, accounts, prospects, things of that nature, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why you don't already do the same thing for issues? I guess it's not as critical for issues because you wouldn't necessarily have 2, 3, 4 different systems with the same issues. Is that correct? Or is there other complexities that I don't understand?
Yeah, that's exactly correct, right? You have the same, you usually have duplicate identities, accounts, for example, but issues, like if you create an issue in an external system, you really want to have issues synced, right? So you usually don't have issues in multiple systems at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I suppose there's still some, I mean, you mentioned some examples of things that you want to do to move this forward. By the way, guys, like if you have any topics around AirSync, not just about deduplication, not just around schema mapping, if you just have any questions, you can find myself and Erazem and others on the Discord chat that we have. So please, we'll put a link to the Discord server. Please join us on the Discord server and ask us questions. We love hearing from customers and just audience members that are curious. So please do that. And of course, just to tie it back to what we're doing with Computer, this is the heartbeat of Computer. This is how we get fresh information into and out of our system, out of Computer. So when you talk about Computer's memory, it's only possible because of AirSync. And AirSync is trying to make sure that you can bring all your most critical data, your most critical integrations, and have it available for Computer on all your most important surfaces. So we just want to do that in the best way possible. And among many of the things that Erazem and team are looking at is things like data sanitization, which is something we saw today. Erazem, anything else in this department that you want to show us here?
No, I think that's a perfect ending to the first session, right? But of course, we have so much other stuff that we want to show you. So I think that's best saved for the next session. Yeah.
Outstanding. Well, with that, I'll just say thank you, Erazem, and thank you to everybody who was able to join us live today. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.
See you.
See ya.